week's episode is brought to you by Humango, Super League Triathlon's official AI coaching partner. Humango is a unique training platform that will improve athletic motivation and performance because it understands how we train and why we train. Hugo, their AI assistant, understands your goals and changing commitments to continuously build an adaptive training plan with regular guidance for athletes of all levels. Hello and welcome to a very special short shoot show. So much to talk about because we've had 3 back-to-back weeks of racing. We take a breath right now and pause in the championship series before we head to Toulouse. And the storylines are really forming because we get into the business end now of competition. 2 more rounds to go. Toulouse, of course, next weekend. From across the world, we welcome a couple of the team managers in Hawaii right now, preparing for Kona, not competing, preparing other people to compete. The Eagles manager, Tim Don, and in Poland, am I right? Macca, you're in Poland.
Poland, just arrived.
Just arrived. You've always just arrived somewhere or you're just about to leave somewhere. So you go Poland, and then you go London, and then you go to Barcelona to do a 70.3. Good luck.
Busy week.
Busy week. Are you prepared at all before we get into the actual athletes? Are you prepared to be, who you are, which is a 4-time champ?
No, I haven't been prepared for 10 years. That's why I walked away from it. But it'll be good to be back around the atmosphere and, see how we go.
So you're officially racing in the age group wave, so I can track you on
the
app.
Yeah, but don't expect me to run. Mate, I think I'm going to do swim, run, done. Isn't it swim, bike, done? Not swim, bike, run. Swim bike, done.
You say that, but surely the competitive instinct comes back and you get in the zone and then don't you think that's going to happen?
No, I don't. No.
So are you racing in Scorpions kit?
I need to. Jeez, I do better than what we've been going after last week. Maybe I could get drafted. I could get drafted.
You're going to be a player manager, a racer manager. I love it.
Our boys have been fumbling along, as you know, Tim. So who knows? If you want to slip a suit on, I'll take you. Put your hand up.
Celebrity relay in Barcelona. All right. Well, let's look back at what happened in Malibu, especially. Obviously, we've had 3 rounds and a couple of rounds since we've done a podcast, but all the focus is on Malibu, and then the storylines coming out of that heading into Toulouse for Super League Triathlon. And I think if we're going to start with the women's, we have to start with Georgia Taylor-Brown because, there's a lot of parallels to where Matt Hauser was. It's a very different race, but they fell in the same corner. Obviously, Georgia didn't stop at the stop sign that was on the ground and ended up in the barrier. But for her to work her way back through the field and end up on the podium was a real, statement of intent to everybody else, in the same way that when Matt Hauser was wrongly accused of false starting and he worked his way back, she probably, after the wounds healed, will end up going, gee, well, that was an amazing race and I end up being 3rd and I'm only 1 point off the championship win. Tough, but a great comeback, Tim.
Oh, absolutely. I think she showed that in the Olympics in Tokyo, getting that flat tire, and everyone, thought she was out and she still rode and ran her way up there. As soon as she hit the ground, she got back up and she wasn't looking for an excuse not to finish. She was looking at getting a chain on, getting back going, and fair play. These short, fast races, you would have said a top 5 would have been an amazing performance, but to almost get second, I don't know, what can't she do at the moment?
That's it, isn't it?
Stay on her bike.
Apart from stay on her bike. She probably can't get in the shower without screaming, giving all of the grazes that she took a lot of bark off.
She did do the team relay the day after. Fair play.
She did. Because I stood next to her on the start line and it was very disheartening, if I'm being completely honest with you. But Mac, you need GTB to talk to your other returning now Scorpion in Cassandra Bogran and say, hey, when you have an accident, you can also just get up and keep going and still do well.
Yeah, Georgia Taylor-Brown's sort of created from a different cloth than others in the team. I think she's a very, very tough young athlete. Not that all the athletes aren't tough, but she you just saw it. She dropped the bike. She was straight back up. There was not even a thought of staying down or what just happened. It was bang, straight back to business. And it's testament not only to her as an athlete, but I guess her experience as well, that anything can happen. She realised she was still in the game. I know when I was watching it, I was frustrated because she was standing on the opposite side of the bike, right? I'm thinking, when you're putting a chain back, get on the same side of the bike as the chain's on and put the chain on. I was a bit, so she took a little longer than I was hoping, but Yeah, when you've got a swim, bike, run combination like that, and you don't panic and you get back in the game. She knew it was only in stage one. She had a lot more of racing to go, and she was able to pull that back. Her swim's been remarkable, and it's been a big asset for her in the entire racing series.
Absolutely, and it has as well for Taylor Spivey, who made the most of her opportunity there. And it's not to say she wouldn't have created it without Georgia having an accident, in the same way that maybe Hayden Wild wouldn't have necessarily won, or maybe he would have if Matt Hauser hadn't had one. But Taylor
He
was
wouldn't have
excellent.
won.
He would have won? Oh, he's an
He
Eagle,
wouldn't.
isn't he?
Nah.
All right, I understand. But a huge boost for Taylor Spivey at home, an hour from where she grew up, doing it at home, breaking a 4-year drought for her, and taking the championship lead.
Oh, that's massive. I mean, you saw last week. She was great in London. Last weekend, in Munich, I was surprised that she lost the sprint to Sophie Coldwell. But to come back here and she took the moment and she executed a flawless race. Maybe she got lucky in the last race catching that wave, but I don't think that was luck. That's a skill set. Another athlete in the same position might not have done that and caught that wave. But yeah, she was meticulous in the way she went about it. I do think she's back to, 4 years ago, she's back to that, really gutsy kind of, go out and get it kind of racing.
Yeah, look, we saw it in London. She's come into the series in sizzling form, and she's just been knocking on the door. I think going home, being in familiar surroundings, she was confident going into the beaches there. She likes that open water swim. As you said, she made her own luck with that little wave through that inside gully that gave her a little bit of a break. But you don't win Super League racing with a little wave. You win Super League racing by being consistently strong and putting yourself in the action from the onset. She's done it all series, and it was, yeah, okay, did she benefit from the crash of Georgia Taylor Brown? Of course she did. Everybody did. But I think she would have been highly competitive there regardless, and she would have pushed Georgia. And I think come Toulouse, she's not in Toulouse to lose. I think she's in Toulouse to win. So
that's lovely. That's
I had to
lovely.
say it. But,
Yeah. I've actually written that into the top of the television broadcast. It's like in the first 5 minutes, I've already used that joke.
oh, okay.
I couldn't control myself. It's coming up, but now you said it first, so I'll just look like I've been stealing it from you. And I looked on the Super League website this morning, and one of the major headlines is Tim regrets not picking
that.
me.
I've been getting it. Her dad came up to me and he was like, oh, "Don't you regret that now?" And I was like, "Oh my god!" It's like I'm so happy that she's having great races, because last year I wouldn't say underperformed, but she's had a hard run of it. And I lost 7 of my athletes because they aren't racing the series. I had 1 left, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to start afresh. Let's build the Eagles. Let's get the little Eagle chicks and mold them and nurture them. And it's not quite working out so far. But I'm super happy that she's having these great races, and she's earned it herself. Would I want her to be an Eagle? Yeah, probably. But I'm just glad that she's out there executing great races. I'm not. It's not a disaster. Even though, I can't believe her manager. Everyone has come up to me going, "Yeah, aren't you glad you've regretted that?" And I'm like, "Easy, Tiger, easy."
Can't you give us another headline? Can't you say she's terrible? She's going to blow up. I don't care.
Yeah, it's only halfway through the season. You what?
Oh, she's not a team. She's not a team player, and she's a bit of a prima donna, and she always turns left when she gets on the plane. Everyone else turns right. She brings her makeup. I'm joking. I made all that stuff up.
But no, that's a quote. They're going to pull that out. They're not going to say you're joking.
No, they probably will. Remember that.
All the little headline makers at Super League are like, "That's perfect. We'll clip that out. Forget that joking bit." One other thing, obviously it's a race in 2, right? At the moment, they're on like 41 and 40 championship points. There's a big gap back, but then there's a huge chunk of athletes all vying for that 3rd spot. So 3rd through 8th or something is like 5 points between them all. And there's some boom debutantes in there, right? So Jean Lahaye has been great. Steinhaus has been great. Garcia picked up a 2nd position. Like, it's so nice to see this. These athletes are all not young. Some of them are, but they're all new to Super League, and they've been super consistent. And I think that's really added to the racing. And now there's a real race on for that 3rd position behind Spivey and behind Taylor Brown. So, Macca, obviously you must be happy to see these athletes come in, some of whom have great experience outside of Super League, but are all new to it.
I think that's what's been amazing about Super League. It was only a couple of years ago we're talking about young athletes like Hayden Wild and Alex Yee, and people were saying, "Oh, who are these young stars?" It's what we develop. We bring on this new talent. They refine their skills by taking on the world's best in multiple stage racing. You learn your craft by racing more against the world's best. And I think Super League exposes a lot of the youngsters to that and gives them the opportunity to believe in themselves. Suddenly you're running head to head with Georgia Taylor Brown, the Olympic gold, Olympic silver medalist, thinking, well, this is the pace I can keep up, and your confidence grows. I think we've seen that in Taylor Spivey this year. She's a confidence athlete, but more so in those athletes you've mentioned. And I expect them to do super well and stay near that point end to pick a podium finish from the multitude of athletes in that third to sixth position is almost impossible, especially with Sophie Caldwell and athletes like that coming in and out of the series. They're still well and truly capable of winning a race and jumping a lot of those athletes as well on points. So I know Cassandra Beaugrand is back. She couldn't do the trip over to the States because of training. So she's down in sixth or seventh position from memory on the points. I think she'll jump back up. She races exceptionally well at home, and she showed that she's in sizzling form as well. So it's just great to have so much. A lot of people say, where is the depth? There is so much depth. It's just new names and new talent that will start to become the names and the talent of the future as we lead into Paris.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, suddenly they go, next year when we have the same athletes and they've had one season and Jean Lahair finished fourth, and everyone's like, oh, Jean Lahair's back. The depth is there. Yeah. Like last year, they're like, who was that? Like, who is this in terms of, Super League context? It's that kind of thing. And I think you touched on Beaugrand and Caldwell because, they're both still figuring very much in the points, having missed a whole round. And you go back and you look at it's like 14, 13, 0. And you go, well, Sophie Caldwell's in the box seat there as well, Tim. Like you have those two will, if someone has a bad race out of Spivey and Taylor Brown, they'll put themselves in that mix for the overall.
Absolutely, especially Sophie, because she's really kind of in it from the front. We know Cassandra is, but she's a bit further behind because she obviously didn't finish in Munich. But yes, Sophie Caldwell, but it's great. Joking aside, we say it's the future of triathlon. Well, it's the athletes which are the future, and they're creating their own future by stepping up to the plate, racing Olympic medalists, racing world champions, the best of the best. And, watching Jean Lahair take that swim pre, the way she floated across that sand. That was the first stage of 9 stages, and she was attacking it. She didn't care who the names were, who the other women were. It's great to see. And Miriam as well. She must have thought, what is going on in that last race? I'm fighting for a series win. It's just great to see those younger athletes in Super League years, come through and develop. So you can throw a blanket over them and pick any of them out, and that they could be your third. And as you said, still Georgia and Taylor, they still need to finish every race well. It's not a foregone conclusion.
That's exactly right, and that's what we saw happen to Hauser. And then obviously there's the athletes that have had bad luck, and you could probably put Sian Rainsley in there. I know she was, obviously she's very unhappy with how things have gone for her over the last 3 weeks. Beth Potter's had her fair share of bad luck. But then there's the veterans, not the veterans, but kind of the veterans in like Non-Stanford and Rachel Klammer, who have not been on the pace this year. And I don't know, obviously for different reasons, but those two probably have underperformed, would you say, Chris?
Oh, look, the one thing, underperform. The one thing that you
say, isn't
it? The one thing you discover with this style of racing, and Tim and I had the luxury of racing in the 90s, is it is short, dynamic racing. It really suits youth. It really starts to you feel your age. I can only give the examples of a young Australian athlete called Courtney Atkinson that Tim used to race. This guy dominated this style of racing from a very, very young age. And from 18, 19 years of age, this kid came into this style of racing and was very, very difficult to beat because he had such a powerful swim. He was so balanced across the 3 disciplines, so tidy in transition, and just naturally fast, where endurance tends to suit the older athletes. And I do think Non and Rachel Klammer sit in that sort of echelon of athletes right now. Over an Olympic distance, I think they'd be probably more competitive than the girls in front of them. But this is not Olympic distance racing. this is Formula One of triathlon. This is fast, dynamic racing, and they're getting exposed by the sheer speed of the youngsters and the youth, and that's what makes this racing very, very cool.
Laura Lindemann back as well, which is going to be another little thing to add in, and that, I mean, she comes in as a second wild card, and that's a very good wild card to have. She was good, top 5 in Munich. We expect the same again, Tim?
I think so. Maybe she's not a cheetah this time. She's a rhino.
Oh, she's switching teams.
Maybe she's switching teams. There was a mid-season transfer.
The draft window was open.
The Swiss team got the watches and the cheese out, did a deal. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, she's a class athlete, and I think similar to what Macca was saying. I think she was shocked that these young girls were all over her in Munich. So hopefully she's gone away. You know, she's carried on obviously her training, but she's sharpened up. You know, it's not, we talk about these transitions, but for me, the transition starts kind of like the last 50 meters of the swim and the run to transition. You know, it starts the last 500 meters of the bike. You know, in an Olympic distance, I'm not saying complacency, but just as long as you're in the lead group, that's good enough to run up for a podium. If you're not right on the front foot, then you're just cursing yourself for the next discipline. So hopefully she is going to sharpen up those small things. And we're going to see her at the pointy end. Again.
It just, after you watch this for 5 or 6 weeks and then you go and watch an Olympic distance race, it's just boring. I don't know. I find it really boring. I'm like, all right, have a decent swim, ride around in a group for 40 Ks, and then we'll have a run off to see who's got the legs today. That just seems to happen over and over. But this one, there's just so many things that can go wrong, and that's why it's so much fun to commentate. Are you guys... what's the team? What are you happy with the teams element? Obviously, you guys are now 3rd and 5th, and we're talking about.
I'm not happy.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't be happy because you're coming last, Tim, and Macca, you're
consistently last.
Your assistant manager, Chris McCormack, and you might not know this, because you didn't have any men finish the race in Malibu, and after the last one got eliminated, he just walked out in disgust off the black carpet. So I'm not doing this anymore. Finished, and he just left. I mean,
you should have seen the team meeting. You should have seen the team meeting. He asked the girls if they'd race the men's race in Toulouse. All the men replied. It was a disappointing display without question in Malibu after the buzz of bringing Cam Worth in, and we knew that Cam wouldn't showcase, being an Ironman, being a big name in triathlon doesn't correlate to necessarily winning Super League races, as we saw. It's, as I said earlier, it's like putting Kipchoge in an event with Usain Bolt. Both big names, but Usain will blow his doors off, and that's exactly what happened. I think Cam was quite shocked by that. But that being said, the instructions for the team, and Cam brought a lot of team dynamic to the team because he comes out of that Ineos Grenadiers team, and he was a great asset without question. But the one thing he said was like, guys, we in any team we all have to fight for each other and we fight individually, and every point matters. But on the men's side, we just got our doors blown off. We were never in the hunt, and the discussion was to score points no matter what across anything. We needed to put 2 or 3 athletes in that top, in that top 15 overall at the end of the day. We weren't expecting to grab a lot of the individual discipline points, but when we're eliminated by stage 3. We won a short shoot, but we didn't even have anyone in the final. Right? So, yeah, that's an issue.
You got to be in it to take it, pal.
That's got to be a first, surely. I
think it's happened one other time. That it happened in London last year. That I think that there was someone won the short shoot, but that was individual, right? So, Lopez won the short shoot, didn't make it through to stage 3. But to have no one on the team make it through, that's a future trivia question. That's Chris McCormack's Bahrain Victoria Scorpions from 2022. What about you, TD? You've gone from penthouse to outhouse, my friend.
I have, look, and I'm not making excuses because racing's racing. When the gun goes, there's no hiding out there. But the first race in London and in Malibu, we only had one woman finish each of them. Shana, she had a great swim in London, was involved in a crash. Non's buckle broke on her helmet, so she couldn't carry on. Again, Shan was in a crash. This time it was a front flat that kind of took her out. Non's consistently been our finisher. So the women really, they've been getting a few individual discipline points, but they really need to kind of have a little bit of luck. But as Macca said, it's they've got to fight. They've got to fight for themselves and they've got to fight for the team. And I know we're last, but the boys, the Eagles, they've really been working together. They're really coming together. They're trying to, after what happened in London, they really came together behind Matt. They're fighting for short shoots so he can get them. There was a big. We really changed our strategy in trying to get discipline points, not the short shoot. And again, I think we're first and second in the swim. We're third in the bike, and I think we haven't got any. We're fourth in the run. So they're really changing their dynamics. Emil Holmes has just been. He's a great. Him and Dan Dixon have been rooming together. Dan got fourth. He's like, it's the most money he's ever won in a triathlon.
Yeah, he was so stoked on Sunday.
He was on the phone to his old man going, "Hey, how much is it like?
I won like $9,000. $9,000.
It's brilliant, and I know they're hungry for and because we're last, we get one of the wild cards, and they're hungry for Toulouse. But yeah, they're
hungry to lose, or they're hungry for Toulouse.
They're hungry for Toulouse.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I think the women more than ever, they really realise they need to step up. Not step up because that's harsh, but they need to have a flawless performance compared to what they have individually. And if they do that, I'm positive that we're going to get some more points. And yes, we are last, but we're only one race away from jumping to third. Look, the Bahrain victorious Scorpions went from first to third. We could easily go from fifth to third if we have a good race. And yeah, Matty Hauser, obviously, he's out the series unless something happens terribly to some of the other guys, which I wouldn't wish it upon them. And yeah, I mean, he's the inform athlete, but he's actually he's in Loughborough living with Alex Yee at the moment, so he's got a good training partner there with Ryan, and I think he's going to come back, guns blazing, wanting to say I'm still the man to beat. Let's go, Hayden.
Well, hold that thought. We will talk about the men's. We're going to take a quick break right now. We'll be back to preview the men's, but now it's time for Coach's Corner with Olympic gold medal winning coach, Ironman champion coach, and Triathlon Hall of Famer, another one, Lance Watson. Lance, thanks so much for joining us. Back on Coach's Corner again. Good to have you back, mate. And I understand that you're just coming off a glorious victory at Ironman Wisconsin. Not personally, but someone that you coach.
Yeah, not personally, definitely not. I may have a world record for longevity of coach-athlete relationship. It was Brent McMahon. He won his fifth Ironman a couple of days before his 42nd birthday. It's been a good 3 years between victories. Obviously, the pandemic played into that, but just couldn't be happier. I started coaching Brent as a teenager when he was 16. In fact, funny little side story, I took him to Europe on a tour when he was 17, and his parents signed over legal guardianship to me. And this is 25-year-old Coach Lance, right? So maybe I should have a talk with them now. I'm not sure I would do that again if they should have done it, but they did. And anyway, that's where it all started. And what a ride, and what an exciting day for him. He led wire to wire, first out of the water, had a little 45-second lead on athletes like Ben Hoffman, Andy Potts, Cody Beals, and it was classic Canadian weather, 13 degrees, pouring rain, rolling terrain, and every time Checky just extended a little bit more. 14-minute victory at the finish, which was incredible. So
that is incredible.
Yeah.
Well, that's I've got 3 more years left in me then.
You're just approaching your prime. Really get you going on Humango and get you on the right program there, and
that's what I keep telling my family. I'm like, I'm just coming into it now.
Quit your day job,
This is
my
40s.
Go get a real job as a professional triathlete. You'll be great.
I need to lose about 38 kilograms first. Now, it's a good tie-in, actually, because Brent was part of the inaugural Super League Triathlon was now 5-6 years ago in Hamilton Island. Right. Have you been watching the championship series? What have your thoughts been so far? We've had 3 back-to-back weekends, and I imagine, 3 back-to-back weekends, it doesn't happen very often in terms of racing. So, as a coach, you must be like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, it's interesting. You have to come in with a great base of fitness, of course, and then you're working those weekends into your overall training plan. So, that the guys and the gals are doing probably some endurance work the day after the race just to make sure that they keep their overall fitness and base up. And then they're probably doing some, mid-race pace or Olympic distance race pace midweek just to stay in touch with that energy system. And their coaches would be identifying those weekend races as their anaerobic work or their speed work kind of in their overall season plan, making sure that they're, rested coming into the weekend and they're able to absorb the work coming out too. But yeah, it's an interesting puzzle for a coach to guide an athlete through that. And it's just, you just marvel at the athleticism of those athletes and, just backing up stage after stage and pushing at that level of intensity and that level of speed that they do. Watching them in Malibu coming through the finish, and there was no waiting around. They were straight out and setting up and getting ready to go again. And then for any of us who've ever tried to swim in the surf, forget about having just finished a triathlon to get back out there and go again. It's hard, like you're moving against you're trying to move against the waves and currents and that it's very anaerobic in itself. So yeah, what a weekend of racing it was in Malibu. That one particularly was exciting for me to watch.
Yeah, coming from your incredible base of experience, which athletes out there really, I guess impress you with the way they go about it from the Super League field? Like I always look at someone like a Georgia Taylor Brown, and she
Mm-hmm.
tends to be super composed in how she
Mm-hmm.
deals with all of the thinking that goes into this, as well as the athletic stuff. And then you saw obviously she had a crash and still came back and it finished with a podium. So
Mm-hmm.
you must be really impressed with it. There's probably a few athletes there that you think they're really on top of it in terms of their little 1%ers.
Yeah, no, for sure. Will, it's so there's a reason these men and women are champions, and part of it is the athletic package, of course. They're gifted athletes. They chose their parents correctly, which is part of it. But there's learning every time you go through any kind of a race experience. You learn, and when you see these athletes at this point in their career, they've got up and regrouped from crashes before. They have willed themselves through anaerobic pain numerous times over the years, and they know how to keep their head in the game. So when you have a newer athlete, sometimes things go wrong, and their brain immediately starts, focusing on the mistake or how it's not their day, and that little conversation in their head just starts to escalate. Whereas an athlete like that, they get very, very good. They spend a lifetime actually learning how to quickly refocus and get back on task, and in some ways keep their head empty and just react and proact within the situation. So, certainly you see Hayden out there racing, and he's really, he's just a beast, right? Like he's awesome, and it's exciting to watch how aggressively he races. But you also see a young man who's really starting to come into his prime, overall. And the confidence is building, and he's just getting stronger. He's kind of putting that man muscle on as well. So that's helping him out. But the more times they have success and the more time they deal with different kinds of adversity, it all goes into their overall skill set and their mental toolbox. And so to your point, bouncing back from a crash, reacting to a surge, picking the right spot in a bike group to go into a turn, not losing a rear wheel. It was tough to see Hauser go down like that. That was sort of the battle we were all excited about. But it's even the top guys make mistakes, but he'll learn from that one as well too, and maybe play it just a little bit cooler the next time. Yeah.
What was interesting to me was that at the back of the field, while all that was happening at the front of the field, at least in the men's race, we had Cam Worth who kind of put the hand up, and full credit to him for coming from a training block for Kona and coming from doing, multiple day stage races and going, I'll have a go at this. Yeah. And he knew, you could see, we were doing interviews with him beforehand. He's like, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to blow the field wide open. And it was one point where he said, hey, he pulled me aside and he said, Can I run across the mountain line with my shoes in my hand after I get off the bike? I'm thinking to myself, mate, don't worry. You're probably not going to get eliminated at that point. Yeah. And then he said, no, to get the short chute. So if I'm leading, so I can get the shortcut. I'm like, I don't think that's going to happen. In my head, I'm like, I don't think it's going to happen. So he's trying to will himself into it. Yeah. but I could see deep down he was worried about the swim, and that's how that played out. But
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think of that to frame that effort, considering that in 2 weeks now he's going to be at Kona and he's going to be looking at top
Yeah,
five? If he can
first of
make
all,
it.
what a legend Cam Murph is. I mean, lifelong athlete, decorated rower. Let's not forget, before
Yeah,
he went
yeah.
to professional cycling, and then to have the success he's had on the world stage in Ironman too. So it's a great example of just probably one of the best all-around Australian endurance athletes in the last 15 years, and how a big engine is a big engine and it can transfer from sport to sport. But within that, athletes have different highlighted energy systems within their overall, physiology. And so for someone like Cam, I mean, he's shown that he has the ability to go long. He probably trains long, and he trains hard and long regularly. And I have no doubt that if he said, okay, well, I want to focus on this kind of style of racing, and he, committed even a half a season to doing the kind of anaerobic work and regular speed work that you need to do to be successful, he would be a factor in these races. But it also, I actually kind of love hearing the story about him being like confident beforehand and talking about the short shoot and that. I mean, that's what we talk about, with these athletes. I mean, they have to believe that they can do it. And he's not thinking about, hope I, make the cutoff, or, he's thinking about, he's visualizing having that success, and he's visualizing being at the front of the race. And you don't have any opportunity to win if you can't, toe the line and see yourself doing that. But I guess on the other hand, probably a bit of a wake up for him as well too, at how dynamic that style of racing is. And if he's hungry to do more, which it sounds like he is, I'm sure he'll probably fine tune his prep a little bit, and and come away from that race with a little bit more of a visual, a mental visual of how it's going to pan out and how fast you have to be.
So your Cam's obviously Kona for him is around the corner, right. and we obviously everyone in the triathlon and endurance sports world has one eye on the Big Island when it comes October, and he obviously balances his work as a professional cyclist with Team Ineos Grenadiers with his Ironmans, and he said to me after the race, it's been difficult because I'm on call for the team, so they need me for something. It just interrupts a preparation I might do for a triathlon, which has to come second fiddle at the moment. So he was told at the last minute that he had to come and work as a domestique for a certain multi-day stage race, and he was trying to prep for Ironman Spain, which he ended up qualifying for Kona in. And then, so his preparation for this Ironman where he qualified for Kona was to do a multi-day stage race the week before. And then he finished second in that race. And then he finished second in Spain. He's kind of annoyed because he says to himself, if you just told me earlier, if I planned better, I'd be able to win both of these things. So he's got this mindset where he's like, well, if I just had more time and more planning, I'd be able to do both better. So now he's worked with a team. He's signed on for another 2 years, and he's going to have this all put into his plan. So he hasn't even really got serious about Ironman yet. Right. And now his team's going to back him in. So when you consider that and that, he comes off, he did that Ironman in Spain and finished second off 5 days preparation. Yeah. What can he be, if he does get it right?
Yeah. So, again, as a coach, when you've worked with all kinds of athletes, over the last few decades, things happen that make you almost question your paradigm as a coach. How do you prepare athletes? And so I had the good fortune of coaching Chris Lieto for 5 years. And Chris was a dominant cyclist in our sport. And we actually looked for bike tours for him because we were like, how can we stress your best asset? How can we get you in an environment where you have to compete with guys who are at the same level as you? And, the year when he had his breakthrough in Hawaii, he came sixth. He ended up coming second, almost winning the darn thing. But when he had his breakthrough he came sixth. he went and had done the tour of Utah, with a professional team. And so, we were fitting in little jogs in and around there and trying to, keep him in touch with the triathlon piece. But the fact is, someone like Cameron, first of all, planning and being able to anticipate what's coming at you would be super helpful. But he's still doing this incredible endurance work. And probably a takeaway for a lot of amateur athletes, it's if you have an injury or you have a little setback or whatever, a lot of that fitness, it doesn't go away, or it can come back pretty quickly. And we're often looking for how can you maximize what you can do at that point. So yeah, Cam would have had to pull back on the swimming and the running for sure in that scenario, but he would have been supercharging his cycling again. So he'll be really interesting to watch in Hawaii, given his pathway being different than others. But he's also one of those athletes who you would call an impact athlete on the course. And by that, I mean, he is a guy that can shake up the outcome of the race, however he does, whether he comes top 10, top 5 podium, which he certainly has the potential to do. He can wreck a lot of other guys' races out there too, because he is just so strong on the bike. And when the chips are down and somebody makes a move on the bike, it doesn't matter who it is, guys are going to chase. And maybe not in their best interest to do so, but they will. And so we'll see. It's like dominoes. The dominoes will fall when he decides to make his move.
Which is the testosterone that gets in the way of a race plan. And I guess that's how Blumenfeld ended up being smart enough to win overall last year, because he didn't, in Utah, so he just didn't, he didn't do what he's done before. But it's an interesting thing that you pointed out in terms of, professional athletes have their setbacks as well. And so does your amateur athlete. And that's something that we all have. Like, we all have families and we all have jobs and we all have other things to do. And I guess that's what makes Humango really good. So I've been on Humango, I've been using it, and every 5 minutes I'm like, recalibrate, please. Recalibrate, something's come up. Please fix this for me. It's been really interesting. And what it has done is forced me into doing way more base work than I would usually do. I think I've realized that I haven't done enough stuff because I just don't have time. So I'm like, right, I have 1 hour. What can you do for me? And that's what makes it a really interesting tool for an amateur athlete.
Yeah. I think, first of all, a lot of us, we think, well, if I'm not bleeding out the ears all the time, then I'm, not getting the maximum impact from my workout. And we do have different energy systems that need to be addressed. And you'll find that having a good base of endurance, that's the foundation for going faster in the long run. And it's a couple things. It's that staying power. When you build up that threshold and that speed, you still need to have that endurance to be able to sustain that pace. But when your endurance is strong as well, it gives you the ability, when you do get into those intervals, to recover quicker between intervals, which allows the quality of the high intensity set to be higher as well. And I like the fact that you're like stressing the system and you're testing the system by recalibrating and recalibrating. And
I try not to, but it's hard. It's hard because I'm like, apparently someone else needs me for something. All right, I can't do this 2 hour block.
I think after a while, it's just going to start giving you a hard time and say, come on, man.
At what point does Hugo, the AI, just go, what are you doing, Will? Come on, man.
Yeah, Will, we're going to start again. Yeah. No, I mean, it's been neat to watch the programming and the AI evolve. And I go in there and I purposely throw things into the progression just to see what it will do. And I'll go back and I'll review the plan that it'll give me and make sure that it makes sense. And it's consistently, moving and recalibrating, especially the intensity sessions. I've looked at some other platforms and sometimes it'll just shift things. And next thing you know, you're trying to do intervals 3 days in a row and intuitively, okay, that's probably going to hurt me. Whereas this always keeps an eye on a maximum percentage of your workload done in certain energy systems. So it's always calibrating and making sure that there's a hard ceiling on how much intensity will be put into your program. But it'll also make sure that you don't have, ridiculous gaps between trying to do hard work, because as an athlete, if I were your coach and I said, oh, I know you haven't done intervals in 2 months, but let's go to the track and run all out 400s, you'd be like, well, that sounds fun. And will I be able to get out of bed tomorrow? Right. So,
Yeah, I
so
would say that. That's
it's
exactly what I would
constantly
say.
metering out, periodized proportions of work in energy systems and gradually migrating the amount of endurance and threshold quantities as you get closer to your A event. And if your A event moves, as you've seen, it starts thinking, and your entire macro cycle will reprogram for you. So it's super effective, and I'm probably going to be out of work soon, but it's the future of training.
I am too. Don't worry. All of our jobs are becoming obsolete eventually. The AI will do this. It'll just be two AIs talking to each other on a podcast, and they'll have great insight because we will have programmed them very well. Well, I'm going to continue with it. I've got, hang on, 14 days until I have to race. So what can it do for me in 14 days? Let's find out. Yeah. Half of which I'm going to be traveling. So I might be underprepared, but that's a human error. That's not a Humango error. Thank you so much for joining us on Coach's Corner again, Lance. It's always a really insightful part of the podcast. I mean, notwithstanding the fact that the rest of the podcast is me basically talking to Macca, which it can be less insightful. So it's nice to mix it up with something cerebral in the middle.
Oh, I don't know. Mac has got some great stories and some pretty amazing insights, as do you too. But thank you so much for having me back again. Well, it's great to see you again.
All right, Lance Watson there from Humango. The guy's got an incredible resume, and it's great to speak to him once again. All right, let's talk the men's a little bit more, and what a shame it was for Matt Hauser, and a shame for the championship as well, because just like Georgia, he couldn't stop at the stop sign. Whether there was a bit of sand blowing on the course, whether it was a bit slippery on the white paint, we'll never know. But it's now his 14 championship points in arrears. So Hayden really put his foot on the throat, and Matt's dropped to third. But as we said just before that he's with Alex Yee, he's recouping. He was so devastated at the end, but already in the post show when we interviewed him, he put it to bed in his head, and he's like, okay, well, I'm going to come back, I'm going to find a way back, and anyone can have a bad day. So we want to see the Aussies up top, Macca.
Yeah, look, despite Matty Hauser being an Eagle, and I have a lot of time for him, and I'd love to see him. I would have loved to have seen him win the series, to be quite honest with you. He really came into London, and I thought he was really disadvantaged after that wrong call. And it's just difficult because you don't get the opportunity to go on and smash out, get big wins like that. So to see him win in Munich was like, it was sort of a bit of a, there you go, how you going? And I actually thought he would win the series, and it was great to see Australians do so well. He's, I think he's going to be very, very angry coming into Toulouse. I think he's going to try and win this race, and I think he's going to try and win in Neom. And it'll just be, okay, I mightn't have won the series because of points, but that's your point structure. But I was best on ground, and that's sort of a statement I think Matt's going to make. He's been remarkable, a big asset this year. And I actually did feel for you, Tim, when he dropped that bite, because I thought he was on the way to having a dominant stage win. He was away and clear, and with his run being so strong, I saw him as a runaway leader of that racing. So it was sad to see, and to see him eliminated was devastating.
Oh yeah, and if it wasn't an elimination race, it was just the 90-second rule. He was within 90 seconds, so he could have gone on, and we saw what he did in London coming back from that. And then I mean, you guys are. I mean, he won Munich, and he beat Vasco and Hayden, who both had short shoots. Has that ever happened before? Yeah, someone at the end winning a race without getting a short shoot against two people with a short shoot.
That's true. The way that short shoot worked out, though, because of transition, they were both last out of transition, those two, and then they took the short shoot, they came back. That's their
skill set of Super League,
Yeah.
So we talk about his big swims, but my gosh, he's got a big run in him now, and he's just growing in confidence. And as Macca was said, I don't think he's going to come back going, I'm not going to win the series. There's no point. I think he's going to go, if I don't win the series, I'm going to make sure I win in Toulouse and I win in Neon in the grand final. And the form he's on, if he's, I've messaged him a few times, and touch wood, his injuries are good. They're very superficial. I can't see him not having a full gas attack on that.
Well, you gotta be in. I mean, all it takes is for Hayden to pick up a flat tire or something or other, and then that's the end of that. I mean, we've seen it. We saw it with Vince back in Singapore. We've seen it. We've seen it multiple times. We saw it on the weekend with Georgia Taylor Brown. Like that's all it takes. And we saw it with Matt as well. So here's a hypothetical for you, Tim. Obviously, you've got Emil, you've got Jamie Riddle, you've got Dan Dixon, all guys who have been figuring up in the top 10, which is great. Hasn't helped you off the bottom of the points table, but that's by the by. If you had someone who was struggling at the back at the end at stage one, and Matt Hauser was off the back, and there was 3 people getting eliminated, would you say, "Hey, mate, drop back, like team orders, let the team part, let Daniel Ricciardo pass Max Verstappen type thing, Red Bull team orders, so we can get out of the elimination zone," or not?
That's actually a great question. I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think I would give it if they were close to him. But I mean, the boys were, Jamie and Dan. I think in the first race they finished. Oh, I've got the result. They finished like fifth and sixth. Yeah. So they were right up there. Like you don't ask. Like Hamilton, like Matt Russell's not going to let Hamilton pass 6 people and then let him pass. If he's behind him, yes, they would do the switcheroo, or Red Bull would.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
To do it. But
if you had a Ryan Fisher, is what I'm saying.
But if there were 3 people between them, would you do it? I don't think you could do that.
One day it'll happen. One day it'll happen.
Yeah.
Maka would do that.
We need to do a deal. We need to amalgamate the Scorpion women and the Eagles men, and we would be like destroying everyone.
Yeah, but
Michelle would say you'd be a shark.
Yeah, you'd feel for the team that was left over, which was just the Scorpions men and the Eagles women or whatever. You'd be on 10 points. Who else do I want to pull out? Shachar Sagiv. Wow, what a performance from him! Like he was the Miriam Garcia of the men's, and the Cheetahs sitting there in second position, stepped up to the plate, and then what everyone said afterwards was, "We've been waiting." Like all the athletes were like, "We've been waiting for that from him. He had that in him. We knew that, and this was the day that he put it together." Maka.
Oh, he was super strong, and he was not an athlete we're all picking on. I think we're thinking Shachar would be a top 5 finisher, but not really pushing for the podium. And I think when Matt dropped that bike, a lot of athletes went, wow, he's a big opportunity. He took that power out of the front of the racing. And I mean that with the utmost respect. That was gone, even though Jamie Riddle and the Kiwi bloody
Taylor
Reid were pushing the pace in the swim. It's still just as quick a swim, but without Matt driving on the front, it brought a lot of people back into the action, and he was a main benefactor of that. And he just was strong and consistent, never put himself out of it. If you watch his transitions, he put himself at the front, coming in off the bike, coming in out of the swim. He put himself always in a good position, stayed out of the trouble, and that's how you got to race these formats, especially the eliminator format. So not only was he great on ground in racing, he stepped out with us all. He had a great Saturday night, I tell you that. He came down into a couple of the Eagles.
I'm glad he did, yeah.
The Eagles came out in Santa Monica, and Shachar was there with his whole crew, and I was like, boy, what are you doing here? I think they were shocked to see us out at this bungalows there in Santa Monica.
Oh, so you just ran into each other?
Yeah, we're just here for dinner. I'm like, yeah.
What are all these bottles then, Shachar?
They had some. Yeah, they actually stepped up well. So I think he was very, very happy with himself. It was controlled, but he definitely had a few champagnes and a great evening.
Well, if you're young and you finish second, you're on the podium, you made $15,000 US, and Santa Monica's just down the road, what wouldn't you do?
Oh, yeah.
Hey?
I agree.
Or if you're old and you have a 70.3 in 2 weeks and you just happen to be there and it's your 4th night in a row, why wouldn't you go out again?
Exactly. Don't change it.
Now, anyone might notice that Annie Emerson is not here with us, and this is the reason. I just got an email from her. Oh, sorry, Will, I'm in Spain. I'm using a friend's laptop, and I can't join. I can't make the computer work. I lost my phone. I couldn't log into my Hotmail this morning.
The dog ate my homework.
Mate, heartstrings. Every time. Every time's the same. Annie cannot operate a computer or anything. You mentioned Dixon and Riddle. 4th and 5th overall. You must be really happy with that. And these guys they seem to drive the racing, especially Dan Dixon, apart from the fact that you should go onto the Instagram account and see him absolutely whale himself on a wave. Have you guys seen that yet?
I have seen that.
Oh, yeah.
honestly, before
Sorry.
that happened about 10 minutes before the start. He came into transition. He's like, Tim, and I'm like, what? And I was like, you want your water? He goes, no, my back. I just got flipped in a wave. And I was like, all right, mate, you'll be fine. And then, after the race, I said, how's your back? He goes, oh yeah, it's fine, it's now. But then I saw the video and I'm like, gee, and he really did get proper Geordie, flipped by Jimmy Five Bellies or someone.
Yeah, it's like an actual scorpion, just the tail coming over the back, he just learnt from Vicky Holland last year. Good to see Richard Murray back in the top 10. He's obviously had a pretty torrid time, a 2017 champion. But now we focus on Toulouse, right? So we've pulled the storylines out about where we sit. Obviously, it's a one-man race with Hayden Wilde at the front after his second race win for the men. But Vasco Valasa is there in second position because he's backed up 2 podiums in a row. And then in the women's, it's 1 point as we arrive in Toulouse. Now, Toulouse is an interesting one. I haven't been to the race venue, so I don't really know. But we swim in the river there, and it looks like a tight, windy little course, although there's 2 decently long straights, I think, on the bike course where there might be a little bit of opportunity to put some power down. But have either of you been there already and seen the course? No? Tim?
I haven't, no, but I've had some inside knowledge. It's it's going to be an interesting. It is very tight, and you kind of go along the river, you go under the bridge, and then you turn left and you climb up. And it's these, typically French narrow streets, and then you come right round the back, and then you drop whooshing down into transition. So, it's 4-lap bike, and I think a 1-lap run. It's going to be a tight course, and this is the first course in a while that no one's raced on, so there's no advantage to anyone here. And again, I know we flipped the courses, but everyone turning up at London, they know the swim has the bridge. Malibu, they know it's the soft sand. Well, here, no one knows, and no one's done a French Grand Prix or anything here, so that's going to be interesting. The course recon is going to be really crucial for everyone on the Saturday morning.
So is there a decent amount of altitude, altitude change? Is it a decent climb or
elevation?
Change,
I'd say it's more punchy. Kind of so if you think, if we're riding 3 or 4 abreast, and 7 of us, if someone gets out the saddle on the front, it's going to stretch out, and then you hit a left-hand corner, it's going to stretch out again. So it's not necessarily lack of power that you're going to get dropped. It's more the case of positioning, not being aware, being in the wrong gear, having that confidence, because I bet some of those corners, with those high streets, are going to be relatively blind. I think it will be a real test. And again, I think the run is exactly the same course as the bike this time.
It is,
so that'll be interesting.
It is. That bit I do know. And obviously, who does that favour? If you can pull out an athlete and go, okay, so there's a couple of little punchy climbs. Who do you go? That so and so will be good at that.
I'm gonna say for once, because I keep getting credit. I got pulled up by him on the weekend saying to me, "What do I have to do to become a favourite?" Hayden Wilde. So Hayden is my favourite. You hear me, Hayden? Pulled up by Triathlon New Zealand, and what do I have to do? Do you not like me? I'm like, I do. I think you're amazing. But to be honest, that type of course does suit Hayden Wilde, right? He's just so good on the bike. His racing IQ is on point. He never panics. He knows his swim can be off a little bit, but as we've seen in many of the Super League racings, he knows where to put himself, puts himself on the right hip of people. He's always in position. He can be exposed a couple of times off the start in the early stages, but his bike is so strong he pulls himself back in. And I think the single lap run with a climb on it will suit his running as well. So Hayden Wilde's my favourite to win it, pushed very, very closely by Matt Hauser. Matt Hauser will give him a rough time, but Hayden, I'm picking him.
I think Vasco's a little pocket rocket. He's so, I don't know if aggressive is the right word, but he's so confident in his ability, and he's just got that punchiness. Manny Hauser's a lot taller than him. Vasco can have a good swim in that first race to set himself up for good positioning on the bike. But it might be hard for Hayden to ride through if he swims like he did at the Commonwealth Games and he's in it from the gun. I agree, he is going to be the favourite. But it's going to be good racing for the men's side, definitely.
While we're on the men's side, there's a couple of little rivalries that kind of bloomed somewhat during Malibu. The first one is everyone versus Hayden. I think Hayden's very good at being when it comes to the racing, he's elbows out, and you heard Ryan Fisher say he wanted to knock him out on the telecast because he'd been bashed up. And a lot, it's not the first person to say, Hayden swam over the top of me, Hayden elbowed me in the ribs. He's clever.
Is that what Cam Worth said to him when they were at the back?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, Hayden does his own thing. He trains by himself. He does his own thing. He goes out. He knows exactly what he's doing when it comes to racing, and that's why he gets the results he does. But he puts people's noses out of joint from time to time. Would that be a fair assessment, Macca?
Yeah, but usually you put people's noses out of joint when you're winning the way Hayden is, right? So it's funny when you're not at the fronty, pointy end, you can seem to get away with anything you want. But suddenly when you're winning these races and fighting for series points, people tend to notice everything you do. So I think he does nothing wrong. I think people are aware that he's the danger zone, so they're looking for him at all times. So they're aware it's Hayden that hits them, or they're aware that it's Hayden that went past them, because they know when he does, it's a problem. And you just see it. You see the athletes get out of the water and they make sure they're in front of Hayden Wild, because if you're not, you've got a problem. You may get isolated on the bike. So he's become that racer within the series, which means people are aware of it. I think he's great to watch. I think I saw it in Munich when he comes into the corners really, really hot and forces a lot of the athletes, when he's behind, forces the athletes to give him room. And is that dangerous, or is that just good racing? A Vincent Louis or a more an Alistair Brownlee, even a Johnny Brownlee would close those holes and not let him get through. But a lot of the more inexperienced athletes give him that room. He elbows them out of the way and he moves through. I think he's magnificent to watch. And if you want to beat him, then you need to play the same tactics and shut him out. He's just too good to do that to at the moment.
So we're going to see Ryan Fisher shut him out. What do you reckon this weekend?
The enforcer, boom! Ryan Fisher.
He was legitimately annoyed with the Falcon, but it's hard. You can't, when you're getting eliminated, you can't get too upset with the guy that won. Although,
Taylor Reid was annoyed as well with Matty Hauser.
Yes, they were really quite upset with each other after that little bit of argy-bargy coming up the swim chute, no?
Yeah, I mean, after the race, Taylor turned his back on him when Matt went and apologised and goes, mate, it was racing. I was going for the points. I was in the moment. And apparently Taylor just turned around and just kind of fully backed him out. And Matt went over to say something and Taylor was having none of it. So Matt goes, well, yeah, there you go, mate. Cheers. Fight. Literally, yeah. I mean,
that's it. Behind the bike shed's 3:00, right? That's what they all look that age to me. But that's two Australia versus New Zealand battles, right? Across the whatever that is, Tasman or whatever.
And it's
I should know.
It's have you noticed it's the Sharks? What are Michelle and Stu doing to them? Because they're both Sharks, you see.
Yeah,
they're obviously
both Sharks, both Kiwis, both angry.
Yeah.
Right. Sounds like a storyline.
With an Aussie leader.
We should blow that way out of proportion, I think, just for clicks and likes and shares and stuff. So tips to the men's. Give me let's wrap it up in a second, but who wins? So you got Hayden Macca in the men's, and who in the women's?
Home. I think she races well at home, and her run's been really good. And I hope that's if it's dry. If it rains,
I was about to say, heaven forbid it rains.
If it's Georgia Taylor Brown, if it rains.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Anything different from you, TD?
Yeah, I think Matty Hauser, he really wants, I think he's the inform athlete. I think I'm backing him for the win. And then, Georgia Taylor Brown, she wants to get that series lead back. I think last year she did win the series, but it was very apparent she didn't win one race, as, again, I got pulled up of saying, obviously.
Yeah.
So I think she wants to win as many races as possible, and she showed that with intent in Malibu and got unlucky on that corner. So I definitely think Georgia Taylor Brown will be looking to have another great race.
Before we wrap it up, obviously all the details, superleaguetriathlon.com, where to watch, how to watch, wherever you are in the world, it'll be free for you to watch. It's going to be a fantastic day's racing next weekend. But there has been other racing on, and I'll chuck one question to each of you. And Macca, I'll go to you for Ash Gentle running down the field in the PTO US Open. 3 from 3 in the PTO now. And as an Australian and also as a Super League alumni, how good is it to see Ash doing so well?
Oh, that run was amazing, but it shows just the discussion around heat apparently was very, very hot out there, and that all abodes well for Ash's move up in distance, especially if she's targeting Ironman Hawaii. It's one thing to run fast, another thing to run fast in that type of heat, and she's just made a statement. She's had an incredible year, getting married, So missing the 70.3 Worlds, so which I think she would have been very, very difficult to beat in, but a massive year. Awesome to see.
Imagine getting married to Josh Amberger. He's such a rare cat. You wouldn't know what was going to happen and what he was going to turn up to the wedding in. Could be anything. And Timmy, obviously you're in Kona. You will be there for the race, etc., etc. You're just making the trip up to Toulouse in between. What are your predictions, mate? What's going to happen on the Big Island in a couple of weeks' time?
I think the Norwegians are going to come in and boss it. I think the front in the men's race, the front of the pack have lost the power with Alistair, with Jan. Not only are they driving forces in the swim, but on the bike as well. They really like to get to the front, put the power down early. We saw in the PTO male race, everything was the swims weren't as quick. Apparently the top swimmers decided not to swim full gas. I think they regretted that because lots of the people who don't have strong swims ended up riding and running through. And on the women, Daniela looks on fire. Lucy Charles is on a red hot run, coming back for form, but there's a big difference from 2 class 70.3s to an Ironman. And we saw Daniela in St. George, the Swiss Ironman, and the Collins Cup as well. So I think Daniela is going to go for, is it number 6? That's looking. Yeah, it's bloody hot out here. I forgot. I did a 100k ride yesterday. And I forgot how I'm on my road bike as well. My time trial bike, it doesn't arrive till I think another couple of days. It's a lot harder on a road bike fighting the wind. Let me tell you that.
It's good. It's good for the rest of us to hear you say that. But lucky you're going to be totally slipstreamed in a couple of weeks yourself, Macca. So you'll be fine, mate. You haven't got a bike yet, have you?
No. You need one on the rental bikes. I hate traveling with bikes. After years of traveling with a bike, I always said I cannot wait to be retired. I never have to get on an airplane karting a bike again. So now I just tend to rent them wherever I go.
Yeah. I always try and get a separate flight when it's a Super League thing. Otherwise you end up with like Hayden's bike. Why am I dealing with his stuff? This is what happens all the time. It's always Hayden too. He's like, someone will fix it. I'm in charge. I'm the boss. I'm the favourite now. I don't need to worry about that.
It's the Kiwis getting the Aussies to do everything.
Exactly. I'm on side Hauser Fisher. I'm not interested in Hayden and Reed. Not even not a jot. Thank you, gentlemen. No thanks at all to Annie Emerson, who gets paid $0 for this. Well, she gets paid $0 anyway. But I appreciate both of your times. Enjoy Kona, Tim. Enjoy Toulouse. Enjoy blowing up Deluxe in Barcelona, Macca.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck. I can't wait to hear the stories.
It'll be sad, mate. It'll be sad not to commentate alongside you for the first time ever.
I'll be tracking you. I'll be tracking.
No, it's just swim bike done. Don't be looking for me at the finish line. I'm not running. 100%.
Nah, you'll forget. You'll forget how old you are. 100%. And you'll blow yourself up.
Have a watch party. Put the pressure on him. Have a watch party.
The Macca watch party on the app. Track when the dot stops. Lay your bets. All right. That's a good note to finish on. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll catch up for another short shoot show off the back of Toulouse. Bye for now.